Okay, have a good day, everyone. Okay. For today, we would like to conduct a seminar with the title of Understanding the Impact of Teachers' Feedback on ESL Students' Writing Development. For our speaker today is Zakiyya Rihhadatul Aisya and Deva Annisatul Azzahra. Okay, without taking any further ado, let's get this started our exciting seminar. So, please, for Zakiyya and Deva.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Next slide, please. So, the background of the study. For many SL students, developing strong writing skill is a challenging yet essential part of their academic journey. Issues such as grammar accuracy, structure, and confidence often hinder their ability to communicate effectively in written English. Among the various factors that influence writing developments, peer feedback plays a particularly important role only in guiding revisions, but also in shaping students' motivations and perceptions of their abilities. This qualitative study explores how ESL students experience and respond to different forms of teacher feedback. It focuses on their emotional and cognitive reactions, their engagement with feedback during the writing process, and their preference between written, peer, and digital feedback. The study also considers the impact of grammar correction strategies and teacher competence on student writing growth. By examining students' lived experiences and personal reflections, this research aims to better understand how feedback supports or sometimes hinders ESL writing development. The findings are intended to inform more responsive, learner-centered feedback practices in the ESL classroom. Writing proficiency is a fundamental skill for ESL students, essential for academic success and future career opportunities. However, many ESL learners face challenges in developing their writing abilities, particularly in areas such as grammar accuracy, coherence, and academic writing confidence. Teacher feedbacks plays a crucial role in guiding students through the writing process, helping them identify error, refine their ideas, and improve their overall writing skills. Despite its importance, the effectiveness of teacher feedback varies based on the type of feedback provided, student learning approaches, and their perception of feedback. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. And then the objective, to explore how struggling ESL learners differ in their learning approaches compared to non-struggling and high-performing ESL students, and how teachers can use this insight to enhance instructions, and also to investigate how students process and respond to negative feedback, including variation in resilience and social withdrawals, and its influence on peer relationship and learning motivations, and to examine how different feedback methods are teacher written, peer, and digital influence ESL students' writing improvement, and which methods they perceive as most beneficial to assess the gap between ESL students' perceptions of their writing preparedness and their actual writing performance in academic genres such as research papers and reports, direct, indirect, and peer feedback impact ESL students' writing development, and how teacher training can improve feedback effectiveness. Next slide, please. Okay. For the literature review, the process of learning English, particularly in the area of writing, has been the subject of extensive research, with various theories contributing to our current understanding. A foundational concept in the field comes from Dweck in 2006, who proposed that intelligence and language learning abilities are not fixed traits but can be developed through effort and persistence. This growth mindset perspective is especially relevant for language learner as it emphasizes the potential for progress and improvement through consistent practice and engagement. Building on the cognitive aspect of language learning, Flower and Hayes introduced a model of writing as a recursive process. According to their framework, writing is not a straightforward linear activity, but one that involves repeated cycles of planning, drafting, and revising. This model highlights the complexity of writing and underscore the importance of metacognitive strategies where learners actively reflect on and refine their work throughout the writing process. And in addition to cognitive models, social cultural theories have also shaped the understanding of second language writing. One such one such framework is an in Engstrom Engstrom culture historical activity theory or CHAT, which emphasized that ESL writing is not solely an individual task, but is shaped by the broader context in which learning takes place. CHAT focuses on the dynamic interactions between learner, their tool, their community, and institutional rules, suggesting that writing development is medi- mediated by these factors. And this perspective draws attention to the importance of the learning environment and the social nature of writing practices. While much of the literature support various forms of instructional support, Truscott's hypothesis offers a critical perspective on one common pedagogical practice, like written corrective feedback. He argued that such feedback is ineffective and potentially harmful, suggesting that it should be abandoned altogether. According to Truscott, grammar corrections often fails to produce a lasting improvement in learners' writing and may instead disrupt the natural development of language skills. In in contrast to Truscott's stance, more recent discussion have shifted toward remaining the role of feedback, like Careless and Bound introduced the concept of feedback literacy, advocating for feedback practices that are dialogic and learner-centered. They emphasize that feedback should involve active student engagement, where learners interpret and respond to feedback rather than passively receiving it. And this approach positions feedback as an interactive process aimed at fostering deeper learning and greater learner autonomy. Together, this theoretical perspective provides a comprehensive view of English language learning and writing development. They reflect a growing understanding that successful writing instructions must consider cognitive process, sociocultural context, and the ways in which learners interact with feedback. This insight continues to inform best practices in ESL writing instructions and guide ongoing research in the field. Next slide, please. For the research findings, the findings highlight several key themes in English learning, feedback practices, ESL education, writing skills, development, and grammar corrections. Motivation plays a critical role in student success in learning English, and social and cultural context significantly shape the learning process, underscoring the need for contextualized teaching approaches. Feedback literacy is essential for teachers who must develop effective practices that incorporate both written and spoken forms. Personalized feedback proves to be more effective than general comments, as it helps students identify specific areas for improvement. In the ESL context, students generally prefer receiving the teacher feedback on both grammar and content. Their attitudes toward English learnings are influenced by how useful they perceiving writing skills to be for their future careers. Collaborative strategies such as peer discussions and teacher-guided learning are effective in boosting engagement and motivations. And when it's to writing skills, the process typically includes planning, drafting, and revising. Sociocultural factors also influence writing proficiency, suggesting that writing instruction should be read in social context, developing student writing abilities, especially in online learning environment. Regarding grammar corrections, and the research suggests it is more effective when contextualized and combined with content feedback, rather than when it focuses solely on error corrections. Teacher expertise plays a significant role as experienced teachers are better able to apply correction that enhance student learning. And furthermore, some studies suggest that indirect feedback, where students are guided to self-correct, may be more beneficial than the direct grammar corrections. Next slide, please, to the gaps. Slide. Next slide to the gaps. Okay. For the research gap, the findings also point the several important gaps and limitation in how English learning, feedback, ESL education, writing skills, and grammar correction are currently understood. In terms of English learning, teachers often teachers do not recognize the comparison between struggling learners uh, with non-struggling students or high-performing ESL students to identify the differences in learning approaches. And for the second one, is feedbacks. Oftentimes, negative feedback from teacher directly contributes to peer rejections, but it does not analyze how students process and respond to that feedbacks. And responses from negative feedback tend to vary. Some students may be more resilient and others might withdraw socially. Lack of understanding if feedback is helpful, motivating, or limiting a student's writing improvement. How feedback affects student learning and revision process, and also lack of understanding towards the comparison between feedback methods and student preference between right, peer, or digital feedback. Next slide, please. For the ASL, okay. For the research questions, the first is, how do you usually respond to teacher feedback on your writing assignment? And second, do you feel your motivation to improve writing changes after receiving feedbacks, and why or why not? Third, what type of feedback do you prefer? Written, peer, or digital? Explain your reason. And the fourth, have you ever felt demotivated or anxious after receiving feedbacks? And the fifth is, how do you use teacher feedback during your writing process? Next slide, please. For the methodology in the research design, we use qualitative research approach, specifically phenomenological design to explore ESL student lived experiences with teacher feedback in writing development. And then for the participant for this study are high school students in grade 11. The selection criteria ensure that students have prior experience receiving teacher feedback on their writing assignment. A total of 15 students will be included in the study, providing a diverse range of perspective on the effectiveness of teacher feedbacks. And our sampling methods is using purposive sampling. And then the 5 students are selected for in-depth interviews. And for the data collection method, we use questionnaire for all 15 students, mix of Likert scale and open-ended questions. And then the next will be the interview for the 5 students. It will be semi-structured, face-to-face or online, explore interpretations, impact, and emotional reaction to feedback. And then for the data analysis, we are going to use thematic analysis to transcribe and code interview data, identify patterns related to feedback, motivation, and writing growth, and group into key themes: feedback, effectiveness, emotional impact, grammar, and support. And that's it for me. Back to the moderator.
Okay, I'll continue for the result. So this is the summary of the result. Next slide, please. So first, we have engagement with feedback. We found out that most students revise plans and apply feedback across writing stages. Active engagement is equal to continuous improvements, and passive feedback, which is resulting to confusion or poor application with the students. So, and then next we have found that for emotional impact, the positive or balanced feedback increases motivation and confidence, while harsh and unclear negative feedback leads to anxiety and avoidance. And then for the feedback preferences, we have resulted that written feedback is clear, repeatable, detailed, and then peer feedback is sportive, conversational, preferred by struggling learners, and whilst digital feedback is visually clear, interactive, or useful for tech-savvy students. And then for the last one, the fourth one, the feedback comprehension. The first one is clear example-based feedback improves understanding. There's also vague or critical comments cause confusion and demotivation, while students also value specific or explanatory feedback for overall general marks. Next slide, please. And in the discussion, so for this student engagement with feedback, many students apply previous feedback in planning new assignment for the long-term use, and also others take feedback after grading or struggling to apply it effectively. And for emotional impact, for the positive reactions from the students, students feel motivated or feedback highlighted strength, and then the positive feedback also increased confidence and better writing habits for the students. As for the negative reactions from students, they feel discouraged, stressed by vague or critical comments. Next slide, please. So for the types of feedback they preferred, it varied because most participants preferred written feedback for its clarity and ability to revisit them multiple times. Others preferred peer feedback because it is less intimidating and more conversational, while digital feedback, especially through tools like Google Doc, are appreciated for its visual elements, such as highlights and links, which makes it easier to follow. Next slide, please. And for the students' ability to understand the feedback, participants explain that it is more effective that some participants emphasize the value of feedback that explains why something is wrong, not just because what is wrong, but conversationally, vaguely or overly technical feedback create confusion and reduce motivation. Some participants struggle to understand verbal comments that lack written support, and this reflects the Sorbonne's 2020 study, which stresses the importance of clarity and specificity in feedback, particularly in grammar instruction. And then when asked about grammar correction, participants are divided between direct and indirect feedback. Those who preferred indirect correction believe that it is where they're more aware of their mistakes, and it helped them improve in long term. In contrast, for the direct feedback, it has allowed them to immediately identify and fix corrections without confusion. Next slide, please. When talking about teacher competence, the key factor influencing feedback is usefulness. Experienced teachers are described as more likely to give structured and contextual feedback, while less experienced teachers are more vague and inconsistent. And finally, the theme of the academic study readiness showed a divide based on education background. Students who have been exposed to academic writing tests, such as essays or literature reviews, express confidence in their abilities. Others, especially from vocational or grammar-focused school, lack the same preparedness and often reported feeling anxious or confused. So it depends on the readiness of the individual. Stated by Aini and Aishidi, they found similar results showing that readiness improves the scaffolded instruction and repeat exposure to academic genres through a guided practice. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, feedback plays a powerful role in shaping ESL students' writing development and emotional responses. Effective feedback is not only accurate but also clear, supportive, and tailored to the learner's level. The finding from the study, supported by the research, emphasizes that the need of teachers' awareness, feedback clarity, and sensitivity to learners' emotional and academic background. Thank you. Back to the moderator. Back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for our speaker. It was a very exciting and great sessions. But now we move on to the Q&A sessions. For all, everyone want to ask the questions to the speaker, they will be loud now. Anyone, please? No questions? Or we're still open for the Q&A sessions, and we will wait for anyone who wants to ask the questions to our speakers.
May I?
Okay, thank you. Please, Kuswanda.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you these questions, which is the importance of feedback. What do you think is it? I mean, yeah, what is the importance of feedback in this concept? Thank you.
Okay,
I'd like to
thank you
answer.
so much.
Yes.
And we give back to our speakers, please.
I'd like to answer Kuswanda's question. So the importance of feedback, as we have found in the research, so students really rely on the teacher's feedback because it will give them improvement on their writing, especially since they need guidance. So feedback, which is negative or positive feedback, will really affect the way they feel and what they will do in the long run, or especially in the current situation they're in, which is wanting to improve their writing written assignments. So is that clear?
I think that is clear enough and concise. Thank you so much for answering my question, Zakiyya.
Thank you. Thank you for Kuswanda, and thank you for our speakers. And I believe that's the end of our sessions. It was a very great session for us, and I hope we see again on the next time, on the next seminar. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good day, everyone.